Good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock and time to start today's webinar about the Entry Certificate in Business Analysis, or ECBA. My name is Marlena Lombardi, and I'll be your host for this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about what the ECBA certificate means and the types of ECBA resources available to you. Please note this session is being recorded and will be available online on our webinar archives page within 5 business days. During this session, we will answer as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. So if you have a question, please type it into the question box. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenters for this morning, Suzanne Birchie and Deb Oliver. Suzanne is IIBA's Head of Certification and Recognition, and Deb works with practitioners on BA professional development opportunities. And with that, I'd like to turn the webinar over to Deb Oliver.
Thanks, Marlena. And I'd just like to echo Marlena's words and really welcome all of you for taking time out of your busy day to join us, busy morning, to join us to learn more about the ECBA certificate. And before we get into the presentation, I just want to walk through some of the information that we hope that you will walk away with after the session. So really the first one that we want to be able to, or area we want to be able to talk about, is ensuring that you understand ECBA, what it is and how does it differ from the other IIBA certification designations that are offered. As well as understand, is ECBA the certificate for you? And things for you to consider as you're going through that thought process. Plan, how will you make it happen if you decide that this is what you want to pursue? What are some of the things that you need to consider? Prepare. We all know that you have to study for a certificate for certifications. Where are your resources? How is IIBA helping you in terms of understanding the information that's out there to best prepare you for taking the exam? And then actually taking the exam. Have you demonstrated an understanding and awareness of the practice of business analysis? So we'll talk a little bit about what that exam day looks like for you. And then my career. What does it all mean? Let's put it all together, all those different pieces together and say, now that I have this certificate, what do I do next? So I want to bring you back to this diagram that talks a little bit about the IIBA certification framework. It starts off with entering the BA profession, so that's the ECBA certificate. And really what's very, very important to understand is the difference between a certificate and certification, the certification that you get with CCBA and CBAP. And it really has to do with the level of competency, level of understanding, level of skills and knowledge that you would be expected to have when you're entering the BA profession. So when you look at the ECBA certificate, it's really that you have those skills and knowledge that are the foundation for building your competencies in business analysis. You use that skill and knowledge that you have when you enter the BA profession to further hone your skill as a BA practitioner. Then you move forward, develop your competencies, and you move into what we call the expert BA practitioner. That is the seasoned practitioner that has the skills and knowledge to work through any kind of initiative within an organization. And then that further, as you further develop in terms of competencies, you will move into the thought leader space. So why is the ECBA certificate important? And I really love this Venn diagram because it talks about the major players within your career. And at the very center, you have the fact that when all of these 3 players work together, you are delivering value to your organization. So when you think about the ECBA certificate as a person, as a professional just starting in the profession, you think about it in terms of what are those core skill sets that I need to bring to the table as my foundation so that I can help deliver value to my organization. Then from the BA manager perspective, what they're thinking about is, what are those skill sets, competencies that I need within my team in order to be able to deliver on initiatives within my organization. So what are those things that I will be looking for a person who is taking on an entry-level position in business analysis, so I know that that person is well equipped on the path to really honing their skills and really being able to be a stellar practitioner within the organization. And then from the HR professional perspective, that person is looking for, when I'm interviewing and I'm looking at that individual who wants to enter the BA profession, what are those key core competencies that I need to see from that individual? And what are those? What are the expectations that I have in my organization for hiring someone to be able to have the foundational skills to move the business analysis practice forward? So let's talk a little bit about how you would actually go about thinking if the ECBA certificate is the one that's right for you. So you really do have to think about where you are in your particular career. And we have many people on the phone or in this webinar today, and you all have different backgrounds. But I think the commonality between everyone here is the fact that you're thinking about, what can I do in my career? How can I move forward into the business analysis realm? So you may be a project manager and you work with BA professionals and you really want to understand those foundational business analysis skills so you can relate with the person that you're working with. You may be brand new to the BA role. You may be a recently hired individual, and you are now trying to understand, okay, what do I do on the job? What are those foundational skills that I need to be able to work through in order to contribute within the organization? You may have transitioned to a BA role. You could have had a different job within your organization, maybe in quality testing, or it could be something in terms of in an individual or a different domain. What are those skill sets that you need, those foundations that you need in order to move into the BA role, the BA space effectively? You may be a people manager of business analysis. So you may not be a practitioner, but you do manage people that do that work. You need to understand what those core skills are and those core skills that are required to grow within the organization. And you may be a recent grad. You may have graduated from one of the universities and thinking about, what do I do next? What is my area of interest? Having an understanding of what business analysis looks like in terms of the foundations, the skills, the knowledge, the competencies that are required is a good way for you to get a sense of whether or not business analysis is right for you. So I'm just going to pause a little bit and kind of share a story. And it's a scenario of a person by the name of Carolyn. And this may be someone that you can relate to because it's the journey that you're actually taking. In an organization, you may have a person who's an operations subject matter expert. And they've been doing this for 3 to 5 years. And they're thinking about, what? It's time for me to think what I can do next in my career. I want to transition into something else, perhaps the business analysis role. How do I begin? Well, a good place to begin would be with the ECBA certificate. Studying for that certificate, really understanding, being aware of what those skills and knowledge and competencies that are required for business analysis is a good way of actually beginning that kind of transition. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to you, Suzanne, so you can talk about how a person would go about planning for ECBA.
Thank you, Deb, and hello, everyone. So in order to plan for the next step in tackling the ECBA certificate, there are a few things that we feel that you should be aware of up front, and that is having a good understanding of the ECBA program itself. Other considerations include the time commitment involved, as well as the cost that's required. In terms of the ECBA program, all the information around the application process, the eligibility requirements, and the exam process are all detailed in the certification handbook that can be found on our website under the certification and recognition section. Specifically, as most of you are probably aware by now, the eligibility requirements for the ECBA are 21 hours of professional development in the last 4 years, and that you agree to the Code of Conduct. There is no work experience required, and there are no references required with this level of certificate. Once you have determined that you have met the eligibility requirements, we encourage you to start the online application. The online application has been streamlined to be very easy to access, to complete, as well as to submit. Once you are able to submit your online application because you have met the eligibility requirements, you'll be prompted to pay the application fee. Immediately after submitting your application and paying the application fee, you will be provided with an email that lets you know your results. You'll either be approved or you'll be approved pending audit. We perform random audits on our applications for all our certification levels. The audit can take very minimal time. It all depends on how quickly you can turn around the information that's required to validate the information that you completed in your application. Once your application has been approved, then you will be directed to pay the exam fee. And once that's been paid, you will be provided with an email that confirms our receipt of your exam fee payment and will direct you to how to schedule your exam. The ECBA exam is offered by remote online proctoring, and all the information on preparing for taking your exam and for what's required of you on your exam day are all detailed on the website and in the certification handbook. Other considerations are the time commitment involved, specifically around attaining the 21 hours of professional development. And what qualifies for the professional development hours will be discussed in the next slide. Other things to keep in mind that will require your time are the time that it takes to document your professional development hours in your application, and then of course in preparing and studying for the exam. The costs involved include the $60 US application fee, as well as the exam fee, which is $110 US for members of IIBA and $155 US for non-members. Now I'll speak to the professional development hours and what qualifies for those hours. So unlike the CCBA and CBAP, which are professional certifications and require a little bit more rigor around the professional development, for the ECBA exam, we're really testing your knowledge and understanding of business analysis. Therefore, there are different items that qualify for professional development hours. This includes classroom as well as online courses, webinars, conference track sessions, tutorials, keynotes, and workshops, chapter professional events, including presentations, study groups, workshops, and BA conference days, as well as self-directed learning, which would include any research you've done to become familiar with the business analysis best practices, knowledge, and terminology, as well as reviewing the BA BOK guide. Really, the only criteria for the professional development hours is that content must be aligned with BA BOK guide version 3. Now, you can take some of these, a combination of them, or one of them to make up the 21 professional development hours. It really depends on the individual and what they need to feel prepared to take the exam. As I mentioned, any combination of these is acceptable. We have found that many individuals still prefer to take exam prep courses for ECBA, which many of our endorsed education providers offer. So again, it's really up to you, the individual, to determine what is best for you in meeting the 21 professional development hours, and in turn, in ensuring that you're prepared to take the ECBA exam. Other resources that will help you in preparing for the ECBA exam include, as I mentioned, BA BOK Guide version 3, the exam blueprint, which I'll speak to in the next slide. We also have sample questions for the ECBA exam that are available on our website through the certification handbook. And then we have our guide to competency-based certification, which clearly outlines the competencies required at the ECBA level. And Deb is going to speak to that in a few slides. And then finally, we've got the IIBA online library, which can also provide you with many resources to review in preparing for the ECBA exam. The ECBA exam blueprint is divided into two sections: business analysis knowledge, which contains 25% of the focus of the ECBA exam, as well as the BA Guide knowledge areas. It's quite different from the CCBA and CBAP exams in that they do not have the business analysis knowledge content specifically addressed as it is here in the ECBA blueprint. And you'll note that under the BA Guide knowledge areas, there are some key knowledge areas that have much more emphasis on in the ECBA exam that we'd encourage you to focus on. Now, Deb's going to speak to a little bit more around the blueprint and where to focus your attention in preparing for the exam in the next few slides. Here are a list of the sample questions that we provide on our website, and access to them can be achieved through the certification handbook. As you can see from the questions that we have here, they really are recall questions that are testing your knowledge and understanding of business analysis. All questions will have a set of multiple choice answers to choose from, and in our sample questions, we've provided you with the correct answer. So this clearly shows the format of the ECBA exam and should help you to understand what's expected of you when taking the exam.
So now, Suzanne, I'll talk a little bit about the Guide to Competency-Based Certification. This is a brand new resource that we are so excited to be able to bring to you. We've never brought anything like this before in any of our exam preparation or resources that we provided the community. And really, the reason that we provided this is we wanted to make sure that everyone understood the importance of competencies and how they actually relate with the things that are expected for an ECBA holder to know, to master when they actually do obtain that certificate. The other reason that we wanted to provide this to you is that, in addition to that blueprint that Suzanne showed you, we wanted you to see some of the areas that are of focus in more of a granular fashion. So if you recall in the blueprint, it had the 6 BABOK task areas, our knowledge areas that were identified, and this really does break it down to the task level so you can see the areas that require focus. In addition, what we do is we give you a sense of the kind of competency that is required in order to say that you have mastered that particular task, that particular knowledge area. In addition, if you look down at the bottom here, we wanted you to think about the underlying competencies, so those key behaviors that will really help you in terms of executing on these tasks. So the example that I have here is planned business analysis approach. So this is a task that's important in terms of the kinds of business analysis activities that you will want to be able to conduct when you are presented within an initiative. And with a person who holds the entry certificate in business analysis, they really have to be able to recognize those key elements, the key competencies that are truly important in delivering on this task. So when you look here, you'll be able to see the skills and knowledge that you need to be able to demonstrate for each of the different tasks that are labeled. And you'll be able to see the competency level, the proficiency level that is expected. So for this particular item here, business analysis approach selection, you do have to have what we call practical knowledge, and the proficiency is what we call follows rules. And really what that means is that when you have your ECBA and you are working on the job, what the expectation is that you are able to use prescribed guidance to be able to deliver on this particular task. It is one where the competency, the proficiency that is expected is the fact that you can take this information and you will be able to quickly translate it into action on the job. There are some tasks that are a little that require a little more development in competency area. And one would be understands the levels of business analysis formality. That's something that takes a little more nuance to it. So it has been labeled general awareness, meaning the expectation is that you do understand what's important, but the expectation is when you're on the job that you wouldn't be on your own delivering on that. Now I'm just going to just go back here a little bit. I'm just going to go into the Guide to Competency-Based Certification so you can actually see what it looks like when you go on the IIBA website under the Certification tab. You'll see it as one of the resources. So when I open it up here, give me a second, go into the competencies, you will see that it is broken up into the 6 knowledge areas of the BA BOK. And in this particular section, the competencies are strictly for the ECBA certificate. You'll find that when you go into this, this guide, that you will see competencies that are specific to CCBA and competencies that are specific to CBAP. And what this helps you do is understand, as you are working through your ECBA certificate and doing your studying for that, you'll also be able to go into what CCBA looks like and understand what are those different levels of competencies that are required in order for me to progress in that particular area. So it really gives you that whole sense of what do I need to do in order to help me with studying for the ECBA, but also what do I need to do in order to grow my competency. So I'm just going to quickly go into strategy analysis and look at the defined change strategy here. And again, it's laid out the same way. The purpose of what the actual task is. There's an introduction, so you can see the level of competency required, so having a fundamental awareness and understanding of what's involved with defining the change strategy. Here introduces the proficiency of basic knowledge. So really it is just having that fundamental awareness and basic skills and knowledge involved in identifying the appropriate solution scope. So you can use this to get a sense of what's expected in terms of on the job to help you in terms of understanding the magnitude of that particular task for your particular level. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the slide deck right now, and let's talk about, are you ready to take the exam? So the past 22 minutes, we've talked about, what the ECBA certificate is. We've talked about assessing, is it the right one for you? What is your circumstance? You can have many different kinds of circumstances. Is this the correct path for you? We talked about planning. What do you have to think about? What are those things that you have to consider in order to move ahead with ECBA? We talked about preparation. Lots and lots of resources that are available to you, and Suzanne had gone through in detail those kinds of resources that are available, including the brand new Guide to Competency-Based Certification. So now you're ready to take the exam. So what we want to be able to do is kind of walk you through or guide you through what you can expect in terms of setting yourself up for success for your environment of taking the exam, as well as what you can expect for the day of the exam. Now, all of this information is provided on under the certification pages on the website, so please do have a look and get more of a sense of what we're talking about here. But we've broken it down into 9 steps. Step 1 is verifying your computer compatibility. There are technical specifications that are required, so it's important for you to make sure that your environment is set up to support taking the exam in this fashion. You'll need to create an account and then actually schedule your exam. So when it comes to the day of the exam, you're going to have to sign in to the exam system, and you click on My Exams and you launch your exam application. You'll have to go through some verification of your identity and agree to terms and conditions, and then you're off to the races. You're given the time to complete your exam. And then when it comes to step 9, it's the results. So what you can expect next year in terms of the results. When they come back in, you will get your results immediately. But right now, because this exam is so new, it's going to be a little bit of time before we can actually get your exam results out to you. And the reason is that we need to be able to understand what the passing standard is for this particular exam. So Suzanne and her team will provide some communication in early January about what you can expect in terms of getting your exams if you choose to take your exam, or results if you choose to take your exam this month, and then what you can expect to happen later on after we're able to establish what that passing standard is. Okay? Now, what does this all mean? So again, you've prepped, it is something that you want to do, you've done all your planning, you've done your prep, and you've taken your exam. Where are you now? So if you look on the display here, you'll see that you are now entering the BA profession. You have the ECBA certificate, and you're recognized for the competencies, the fundamentals, the foundation that is represented within the ECBA certificate. But you don't stop there. It's now time to start thinking about where do you want to grow your career, or how do you grow your career? You know the different competencies that are expected for each of the different levels of practitioner. You know where you sit today in terms of your competencies. You have that fundamental basic awareness of what's really important in business analysis. But now it's time to actually hone, to develop those skills, those competencies as you're working on the job. And when you think about how you're actually growing your professional career, you'll think about what is expected for you as a person who's entering the BA profession. So again, it is that you're able to recognize and understand why things are important, but what about the work that you're actually going to be expected to do on the job? When we think about that Venn diagram that showed all of the stakeholders that are involved in what happens in your organization, you know, you're the one that's responsible for doing the work. HR is responsible for ensuring that you have those core skills to be able to do that work, and the BA manager is the one that's going to assign you that work. So what can you expect? Well, since you're not expected to have practical experience at this stage in most of the different tasks, you will be looking at doing your practice with a lot of guidance, a lot of supervision from a more senior BA practitioner, so that you can actually learn how to apply the knowledge, the skills that you have. So you would probably be working in a small, less complex initiatives where you're given explicit rules and guidelines about how to actually execute those tasks. And it's important to have that, because that's where you're going to learn, you know, what's really important and how to actually execute on those tasks in a safe environment. You may, as you continue to hone your skill, you may be given autonomous work and in less complex, again, small initiatives, but really having people on your side to support you through being able to execute on that work. Then you're going to be moving into the skilled BA practitioner, and that's when you're starting to really develop your competencies, and there are certain areas that you really want to grow. And here is where you may be working independently on again, small, less complex challenges, but you're also going to be able to have the confidence to modify some of those guidelines that are put into place, because, you know, you've done this before. In a safe environment, you know some things that have worked, you know some things that haven't worked, and you're able to try things and be able to customize the different situations at hand. So when you think of yourself in terms of growing your competencies, you would really look in terms of, you know, what are your strengths, what are your opportunities for growth, your areas of interest within business analysis, and really start to think about a plan of how you actually develop those competencies so that you can improve and you can become a skilled BA practitioner, moving to the next level of your career. And then we get into the sight line being the expert BA practitioner. So you would actually at that point be working more independently, working on a wide range of projects, and being able to master any kind of project, be its complexity, be it unstructured, and be able to come up with your own ways of managing it. So really, when you're moving into that expert practitioner zone, you are that seasoned practitioner, and you're sought out for your expertise and guidance by other people within your organization. And you're actually willing to provide insight in things that are relevant to your domain, but also things that are not relevant to your domain, because you have that confidence and you have that practice as a seasoned practitioner to be able to apply that. And when you think about, where do you grow your career from there, you'll see at that point that you may be looking for more BA leadership type of roles. So you may be thinking about it being a BA manager, a practice lead, a program lead, or a business consultant. Or you may even think that this is the greatest and best opportunity now based on what your aptitude is, your interests are, to focus your career into a specialized area. Business relationship manager is one that comes to mind, requirements engineer, enterprise architecture, or a business architect. So these are the areas, or this is the time where you're starting to think about, I have my skill set, my skill set's honed, I'm a seasoned practitioner, now I want to be able to specialize. So what we're talking about is growing your competencies so that you can grow your career. And we always get questions from people in terms of, well, how do I do that? What are some of the ways that I can grow my career? And, Suzanne talked a little bit in terms of the things that you can do for professional development. And some of the same things do apply for your competency development. There are a lot of resources within your organization, at IIBA, outside of the organization, that you can actually tap into in order to grow your career. And I just want to walk through a couple of them. So Suzanne talked about formal education through perhaps EEP, the trainers that IIBA has endorsed. And there is opportunity to go in and when you want to learn a specific area or more about a specific area, taking that formal training so that you do get that basic knowledge there. There's the idea of coaching, and when I think about coaching, I don't always mean that you get coached, but also that you coach someone else. That is a great opportunity for you to learn. Not only does it demonstrate the fact that you know your stuff, but it also shows that you were able to take what you've done and you're able to put it into another person's environment, in their situation. And for me, that is the greatest way of learning, to be able to be adaptable in the work and the knowledge that you have. Mentoring for growing your competency is always good at any point in time. And again, it can be either you're a mentor or you're a mentee. Going to conferences or taking tutorials, webinars, job aids. There are a lot of job aids that you might be able to find within your organization or find within IIBA resources that you can leverage. BA literature. There are lots of case studies that people share with the community about some of the situations that they've encountered, how they've managed it. Great opportunity for learning. The IIBA Career Center, if you're thinking about moving into a different role or a specialized role, trying to figure out, what's that skill set people are looking for, and having that plan in terms of, these are the things that I need to grow in order to fit that skill set. Volunteering. Great opportunity for you not only to give back to the community, but also to be able to learn new skill sets. A lot of people, I get calls from people all the time where they say, I want to get into the business analysis space, but I'm having a hard time getting my foot in the door. Volunteering is a great way of doing that, because you are given the opportunity to do things that you may not be able to handle, master, or be given the opportunity when you are in a regular role. So it's really important to be able to take those opportunities for volunteering to not only give back, but also to continue to grow your skill set. Practice on the job, again and again, taking those small initiatives, trying something different every time you're doing a small initiative to see what works, see what doesn't work so well, and learn from those areas that didn't quite work out as well as you had hoped them to work out. Job shadowing is very important too, you know, being able to find that seasoned practitioner within your organization and learning from them through watching how they execute, watching how they conduct themselves, how they relate to stakeholders, how they actually extract business analysis information from these people as well. There is the competency model so that you can understand, you know, what your skill set is today and where you need to go. The guide to competency-based certification is the one that we just had gone through today as well, to understand for each of the different levels that you're looking for, what are those key competencies, the expectations of performance once you've mastered those competencies. Going to your HR practitioner to find out, you know, what are they looking for in terms of the skill set, and again, your BA manager to help you, to support you as you're going through that whole competency development. Okay. So now I want to talk just a little bit about the BA community and growing the practice. So once you have your ECBA and you're on the ground and you're actually practicing the skills and knowledge or applying the skills and knowledge that you have acquired, there is opportunity to give back to the organization. And it may not happen just as soon as you get your ECBA, but you are on the path to be able to contribute to the BA community. And again, that's a really important learning vehicle as you grow your competencies, but as well as being able to give back to the community and keep furthering the practice. So there are volunteer opportunities. There are opportunities to write and share your knowledge through best practices for business analysis, writing quick tips, white papers, case studies, joining conversations in LinkedIn. That is such an exceptional way to be able to network with your community, to help your community, and actually learn from your community. Presenting a webinar is an opportunity as well, sharing what you've learned, sharing your experience. People really want to hear what other people are going through and how they've actually mastered certain areas. And you think that you're not always unique in terms of the situations that you encounter, but if you come up with a way of actually facing a challenge and coming on top, that's a message people need to hear. They need to hear how they should be able to manage themselves in different aspects. And working with your local chapter, networking at your local chapter, attending a chapter event, participating in a chapter, volunteering in a chapter, all of these things happen once you start on that path for your business analysis professional growth. So I'll turn it back to you, Suzanne, to talk about the ECBA journey.
Great. Thank you, Deb. So some key takeaways that I'd like you to remember that are specific to the ECBA program itself are the 21 PD hours and the many options that you have available to you in order to acquire those hours. As I mentioned in an earlier slide, there are more options available to you than, say, formal courses. And if you need a reminder of what those options are, they are listed on our website. In the certification handbook for the ECBA level, you'll be able to see them there. I'd also like to emphasize the online application. And as I mentioned as well earlier, we have streamlined it as such that it's much easier to complete. And because we are not requiring you to have work experience at the ECBA level, really it's very easy to track your professional development hours. And then once you have the 21 hours needed, it's very easy to submit, and then there is direction on how to pay the application, and the results of your approval or your approval pending audit are immediate. So I encourage you, if you've got your 21 hours already accumulated, to apply now. And if you don't have the full 21 hours yet, you can start tracking those hours within your profile on the IIBA website. The next takeaway that I'd like to emphasize with you is the remote online proctoring. The ECBA exam, unlike the CCBA and CBAP exam, do not require you to go to a test center or to schedule your exam at a test center. The exam for ECBA is offered via remote online proctoring, which means it's at a convenient location, your computer. It's very easy to schedule, and all the information that you need and the step-by-step process to get you ready to take the exam and on the day of your exam is also all available in the certification handbook under the ECBA section. And then finally, another takeaway is that we are offering a 25% discount off the exam fee for those that take their ECBA exam in the month of December. We recognize that for all those who have taken the exam, have to wait for their results. So this is a goodwill gesture on behalf of IIBA to compensate you slightly for that wait and for that patient by providing you that discount off the exam fee. So if you do have your 21 hours already accumulated, apply now, schedule your exam, and take your exam by end of December, and you will get a reimbursement of 25% off the exam fee. And with that, I think that ends the content portion of our presentation today. So I'm going to turn it over to Marlena to ask the questions that have been posed.
Perfect. Thanks, Suzanne. We have a question, it's for you, Suzanne, regarding exam results for ECBA. Do you plan on finalizing guidelines by end of January, and then will the results be immediate?
Okay, so that's a really good question. The exam results, we do have to go through what's called a passing standard study. So that requires a certain number of exam takers so that we can assess the exams and ensure that when we derive the passing score that it's fair and reasonable. So our plan is to communicate in early 2017, so in January, what the timeline is for individuals that have already taken the exam getting their results. And then we're still finalizing the date by when we will be able to provide immediate results for those that are going to take the exam in the near future.
Perfect. And I know that you spoke on exam proctoring, so it's on your computer. A question is regarding how often is the exam scheduled?
The exam can be scheduled, I believe the schedule is 7 days a week. There are many proctors that are available through our exam vendor, so there are many opportunities to, many spots available to book your exam, and you only need 24 hours notice to book your exam.
Perfect, thank you. Deb, I think this one's for you. How do the new competencies that are tested on the exams relate to IIBA's competency model?
So right now our competency model is being upgraded to reflect Babok Guide version 3. So when we were working on creating that competency-based certification, we did do the work to ensure that all of the competencies are version 3. So when we look at each different knowledge area, what we do is we understand what are those important pieces to be able to execute on each of the tasks that are involved in the knowledge area. And when looking at testing for that, what we want to be able, or what we wanted to be able to do is understand, for each of those different levels or different tasks, what is the proficiency that would be appropriate for the ECBA level, appropriate for the CCBA level, appropriate for the CBAP level. So I'm just going to take us back to that exam blueprint so that you can get a sense of what's in the exam. So when we were looking at the competencies, we broke it out into 2 different areas for ECBA, business analysis knowledge, and then the Babok Guide knowledge areas. Because remember, what the ECBA is all about is developing those foundational competencies for business analysis. So part of it, so 25% of the exam, is about what is business analysis. What are those underlying competencies that help you execute on those tasks that you need to do? What are some of the key concepts? What are some of the techniques that are being used? So looking at each of those different areas, what we did was think about those people that are entering the business analysis profession. At what level would they be able to perform those tasks? At what proficiency level? So what we did was an exercise in terms of understanding each of those levels and being able to say there are certain things that we would expect a business analysis person starting their profession to master really, really quickly and hit the ground running when it comes to working on the job. And you can see that by the way that the knowledge area blueprint is set out. Elicitation and collaboration, requirements lifecycle management, requirements analysis and design definition. These are the bread and butter of business analysis when you start. These are the things, the tasks that are going to be expected of you when you're looking at those small, less complex initiatives. These are the areas that you need to focus. So we had to make sure that those areas for an ECBA holder, they have the foundation, the competencies, the basic understanding and understanding of why these are important and what these are and how you'll actually be able to use them when you go on the job. Now you'll notice that there are some other areas that are not as significant. So business analysis, planning and monitoring, strategy analysis, solution evaluation. These are higher order tasks that we expect that you will develop as you grow in terms of your competencies. So we don't see greater emphasis on business analysis, planning and monitoring, strategy analysis, and solution evaluation until we move towards CCBA and CBAP. Does that help in terms of aligning the exam with the competencies? Marlena?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
Next question I have, I think it's for you, Suzanne. It's a question regarding application. Once our application to sit for the exam is accepted, how long do we have to schedule it, or should we actually wait until we are ready to apply?
I think it depends on the individual. You can do both. You can do either. So you can apply, be approved. Obviously, we must receive your exam fee, and then you can schedule it then. It can be a month out or however long out that you require to prepare. Or you can, if you feel that you're ready right now, you can schedule it within 24 hours. So it really depends on your comfort with your readiness to take the exam and how much time you want to commit to that date.
Okay, and along the lines of readiness then, a question regarding PD hours. Do college courses count towards the required hours, and do sitting on a live webinar or a archive webinar, do they apply for any of the PD hours required for ECBA?
So as long as all three, the content is aligned to BA Buck Guide version 3, then yes, they would qualify towards the 21 hours of professional development.
Perfect. Deb, question for you. What does the transition from one level to the next look like, and how do I know when I'm ready for the next level? So it would be, say, if we were doing ECBA, going to this ECBA certification.
Thanks, Marlena. So I just brought the slide back to your BA professional career, what's next. So when you think about the different levels, you think about how the expected performance or how you're actually performing on the job to determine whether or not you're ready to go to the next level. So when you're entering the BA profession, that is where you are actually taking on tasks that are heavily monitored as you're actually executing them. What you might want to be able to do is understand at this point in time where you sit in terms of your competencies and some of the areas that you need to be able to grow. So as you're thinking about how you want to grow those competencies, you'll think about, the areas of strength that you have, the areas of challenge that you have, and the areas that within your organization you are actually expected to grow so that you can kind of whittle down, your areas of focus, because you don't want to have so many areas of focus that you get overwhelmed. You want to be able to be a little more focused on how you want to apply everything. But what you want to be able to do is to be able to grow those competencies to the point where you are now being able to practice and be able to execute those tasks without guidance. And you'll have those indicators about how well you've moved on based on your performance on the job. You'll see that some things become easier for you in terms of making decisions. You'll make your decisions a lot quicker. You'll be able to be presented with a task, and you'll be able to say, yeah, I think I know how to do that, but you know what, the situation is a little bit different, so I might want to tweak how I actually approach this to be able to be able to execute on that. So you'll get those indicators by the way that you actually do perform on the job, and you'll also be able to solidify that by understanding, you know, have I grown in those competencies areas? Have I evolved, and am I being able to do more than I had been able to do, you know, 6 months ago? And then when you think about moving from the skilled BA practitioner to the expert BA practitioner, this is where those indicators are really, really strong as well. People will be coming to you asking for your advice because they know that you know what you're doing in terms of that execution. They know that you have great insight into different ways of actually performing. So it really is in terms of your expected performance within your organization, how you actually perform in those indicators, and the way that it's being perceived. And again, it is more about understanding, you know, you want to continue to develop, to hone your skills, your competencies in order to move forward with it.
Perfect. Thanks, Deb. And regarding competencies and organizations, Suzanne, is IIBA promoting the new competency-based exams to organizations so they can understand the value of the new exams? And a second part to that might be, Deb, how do I convince my organization to support me in pursuing the ECBA certificate?
So I'll answer the first part of the question, and yes, we do have an awareness program where we are targeting our C-level executives within organizations and our HR community and our BA recruiters. So more on that and how we're going about that will be communicated early in the new year.
So the second part of that question, and I really, really love this question because it's very important, and I think it starts with being able to convince yourself that this is really, really important for not only you to grow as a BA practitioner, but for you to grow your career and you to contribute to the organization. So once you've convinced yourself that this is the path that you want to go, there shouldn't be anything that will stop you in doing that, because it is a logical, rational indication that you do want to grow your career, and it's not just to grow your career, it's to be able to provide that contribution to your organization. And what is very telling is when you go to your BA manager or you go to your HR professional about getting funds for additional competency development and things like that, that you do have a plan in place. If they do see that you are looking to not only start building your competencies here, but you have a goal in mind, where you want to be, you know, your target deadline, what it's actually going to mean, and you can actually articulate what it's going to mean for you, for the business, that is the best way of actually convincing the organization that this is money, this is time, this is value for this kind of investment.
Great, thank you, Deb. I have a couple for you, Suzanne. You indicate that you can use coursework taken in the past 4 years as PDs, but since the BABOK V3 is relatively new, how do we know if courses taken in the past 4 years are correctly aligned with the BABOK version 3?
So there are many courses that are endorsed by our education providers that are listed on our site. So those ones, by being endorsed, do align with the BABOK guide. So they would qualify automatically. And then basically, I think if it's a course that's not endorsed, so that hasn't been vetted yet, you know, they still might qualify for the 21 hours. That's where, as an individual, you would do a check to ensure that it is aligned with the BOK. So, and when we say aligned, we mean that it's not contradicting the BABOK guide. So hopefully that helps.
I think that does. And then for ECBA, do we need to study the material in the perspective sections of version 3 of the BABOK?
No, the perspective section, and there are no direct questions on the perspectives in the exams.
I'm just showing the screen that has the blueprint so you can get a sense of what the coverage is for the exam for the ECBA.
Perfect. And this is all available online on our website if you don't have reference to this. And this will be posted within 5 business days as well of this presentation. We have a couple more questions before we have to end our session. If I take, this is for you, Suzanne, if I take the ECBA exam in December, I get 25% reimbursed to me off my exam fee already paid regardless of my exam result. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely true. As I mentioned, the discount is really to, a goodwill gesture to say we know that you're being really patient and waiting for your exam results, and so we want to reward you for that. So regardless of whether when the results come out you've passed or not passed the exam, you will be reimbursed that 25%.
Perfect, thank you. And for level 1 ECBA, the certificate, is there a need to recertify, retest, or anything like that? I think that's for you, Suzanne.
Right. No, there are no recertification requirements. With this level, it's a certificate, not a professional certification as with CCBA and CBAP. And because we're not asking for work experience, there's no requirement to recertify. It doesn't expire either, though. It's a one-time certificate.
Perfect. A question here. We have 2 campus hires, they're computer science majors, who expressed the desire to work as a BA on the complex software projects. They have very limited work experience as interns. Would they be qualified for ECBA in 2017? They've had about 3 to 6 months of BA experience with the firm. That's for you, Suzanne. Yeah.
Right. So I think because with the ECBA, there is no work experience required in business analysis, that they would definitely qualify. Really, as long as they can meet the 21 hours of professional development, then yeah, there's no reason why, if they're interested in entering into the business analysis field, they would definitely be okay to do so.
Can I just add to that, Marlena? Is that okay?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Yeah. I think that the individual that that posed this question is in a really good spot with ECBA, because it will help in terms of the actual studying, because you're actually seeing the concepts in real life. So that, I think what that does, it really helps people understand, okay, I need to have for the ECBA, I need to have, that knowledge, understanding, and know the importance of each of the different knowledge area tasks. But when you can actually visualize it and you're actually doing it as well, you're also doing that practical knowledge. So it's exceptional in terms of preparing you for taking that ECBA certificate.
And I guess a little bit along that lines, one has a question regarding ECBA. Do you only recommend the ECBA for those just entering the profession, or is there value to take this level even if they've been in this role for some time but don't feel ready to take the higher level of exam?
There's always value in being able to assess how well you were doing in your field. And even though you may be working in the business analysis field, you want to be able to ensure that you have that fundamental awareness, or the fundamentals in terms of growing your competencies. So sometimes that means kind of taking a step back and thinking, okay, these are the areas that are really important, and I'm just going to go back to the blueprint because that's just an amazing slide to be able to reference in terms of the exam and what you need to know. And I'm going to make sure that in all of those areas, I do have that fundamental understanding, that I do know why things are important. I'm not just doing the work that I'm doing. I know it. And once I'm able to say that, yeah, I do know those skills, I do understand them, I do understand the importance of it, I'm now applying them in my job. And it might be the case, and we don't know the full details from this particular person, that they're not applying everything. They're only applying some. And there might be certain areas that they still want to be able to understand that foundational, or to get that foundational knowledge. So I think that if you feel that you need to be able to ensure that you have that bedrock of business analysis, then this is something that is good for you as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Deb. I think we have time for one more. Suzanne, this is for you. How long does it take to prepare for the ECBA exam?
I think that depends on the individual. Obviously, you have to have very good understanding and awareness of the knowledge areas within the BA Bach guide. So it depends on the individual and how much time you're comfortable with in terms of being prepared for the exam. Whether you have some work experience or not, that'll play a part in it, and how much knowledge you already have in terms of the BA Bach guide and the knowledge areas. So unfortunately, I can't say it's a week, it's a month, because it really does depend on the individual and where you're starting from and how much time is comfortable for you in preparing for the exam.
And the only thing that I would add is that, you don't have to go it alone. I think that it's really important to work with a group of people that are in the same boat as you, that are working on the exam, working in the different areas, to not only be able to help each other in terms of studying, but getting a sense of, what are those areas that you all need to focus. And it's good to have that that group to go forward. And I know at your local chapters there are study groups that might be able to help you if you're looking for a group that way, or online, or perhaps there's something that our networks can help you in terms of trying to find people that are in the similar boat that can help and support you in terms of your studying. So, what Suzanne said, I think about 3 years ago when I wrote the CBAP in terms of time, and she's absolutely right. It really does depend on the individual, but what helps to support you through that whole process is if you do have that kind of network to guide and share experiences with as you're going through that process.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Deb. And with that, it is 11 o'clock, and that's all the time we have for today's webinar. Hopefully we've answered all your questions. If we have not, please visit our website, IIBA.org, and look for the Certification and Recognition tab. This presentation will be posted online within 5 business days, both the recording and the PDF of the slides. If you do have other questions that our website does not answer, please email our certification team at certification@iiba.org. And I just want to thank you, Deb and Suzanne, for a great session, and thank you all for attending. And that is it. Have a great day.
Thank you very much,
you.
Marlena, and thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.